Sisters, it's synapses, and before you go laugh at me, I want you to understand the synapse is the most holy sacrament of the sisters of the sacred synapse. It is a sacrament not to be mocked, not to be scorned, not to be messed with. Do you hear me today, sisters, or are your synaptic connections so numbed out with pharmaceutical neural inhibitors, so dulled by your attempts to self-medicate with various over-the-counter, under-the-counter substances, so rerouted, so scrambled, so detoured by the confusing bombardment of the senses and the devil's propaganda that you cannot hear what I'm saying? Sisters, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The synapse is sacred?
Yeah.
What is sacred?
Synapse.
That's right. Now you have to take care of the sacred. Why is that? You don't know, because the sacred will take care of you. What happens if you don't take care of the sacred? I'm asking you, what happens if you don't cherish, if you don't tend, if you don't consecrate the sacred in your life? Sisters, you're going to lose yourselves. You're going to lose the spark. What spark am I talking about?
Synapse.
That's the spark of life. That's right. I'm talking about how to tend the synapses. And they're like a billion tiny little hands reaching out, waiting for you to make a connection. But you have to make that connection. I want each and every one of you this morning to hold your hand out in front of you. Now your arm is like the axon of a nerve cell in your brain. And the fingers are like dendrites. Can you say that? Axon dendrite.
Axon dendrite.
Look at those fingers, sisters. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. They are reaching out, trying to connect with the dendrites of another nerve cell. They're trying to make a connection. They are trying to think, because that's what happens when a dendrite makes a connection. That is when you're thinking. And today we're all about synapse. And let's take these holy dendrites of the sacred nerve cell, and let's see what happens when we connect it with another dendrite. So you just connect up with somebody else's dendrite right there. Come on now, sisters. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Feel that power, sisters. That's the power. Because synapsin is sacred. It's sacred power. We are all sisters of the sacred synapse, and that's all you have to do. Just let that synapse come. And let's talk about this for a minute, because this is kind of funny, but kind of not. The synapse is a privilege, it's a prerogative, it's an obligation. Sisters, there are so many women who cannot synapse. The woman who is sunk in depression, can she think fully, deeply, radically? No. How about the woman who's addicted? Can she think fully, deeply, radically? Her synapses, sisters, are hijacked. We know that. And it doesn't matter if it's, oh my Lord. Is it on? Green light, but I'm not. Oh, yeah, there we go. All right. And yes, when your synapses are hijacked by need for drugs or alcohol or sex or TV or whatever the fuck, you cannot think fully, deeply, radically. What about that woman who's working 60 hours a week, 2 jobs, and raising 3 kids? Can she think fully, deeply, radically? How about that woman struggling against poverty, which we know is slow motion violence? Can she think radically? That's right, and it is not an accident, it's not a misfortune, it's a plot, it's a conspiracy. If you today are capable of radical thought, you have an obligation to do it. I'm serious. There are so many women, and some of them we know are next door, and they haven't found their clips yet. Can they think fully, deeply, radically? If they aren't even connected with their own anatomy? Sisters, we are so privileged. We are so privileged that we have become lesbians. We've connected with our truth, our history, our bodies. We are living life on our own terms as lesbians. It is a huge obligation because so many women can't do that. It is a privilege, a prerogative, and an obligation, and I mean that with every fiber of my being. Oh, where am I? Sisters, work with me. You have 25 billion neurons in your head. 25 billion neurons linked through 164 trillion synapses. That's greater than the national debt. 7.4 miles of fiber in here, sisters. 7.4 million miles. That's a lot of rail. And you know imagination lays the tracks for the reality train. Are we fully deploying these synaptic pathways?
No.
Are we laying them down for ourselves in directions we want ourselves and this achingly beautiful planet to go? No. Sometimes we are, but we're not doing it enough. We need to practice it like a sacrament. I'm dead serious about that because there's a penalty for thinking radically. So we have to incentivize ourselves to think radically because the whole rest of the culture is going to punish you for it.
That's right.
So we must incentivize ourselves. That's why we come to the Lesbian Tent Revival to remember. You know, this is a privilege, a prerogative, and an obligation.
Say it.
I'm preaching it. All right, so now we're going to start the Lesbian Tent Revival today with a beautiful song that I hope y'all got song sheets at the door. This is to the Battle Hymn of the Public. Can I have the Revival Singers of St. Louis come up here, please? All right. Who wants the mic? All right.
Boy, rise, please rise. If you can't rise on your feet, rise in your hearts. And I want to really hear if this is a militant song, sisters.
Everybody, sisters. 1, 2, go.
Oh, sisters, we must synapse every neuron in our brain. Because we can't stand still, we're on a moving train.